Hey, James here. If you found this video, I'm sure you're aware that Unity has dropped new pricing and it's kind of really massive and changes the way that a lot of people are going to be charged for Unity. Now, I'm just an indie dev and I'm hopefully going to release some games on Steam, and this doesn't affect me as badly as some other people, and I'll go through those groups and talk about how it affects each group. I'm also going to go through, I've read all of the forum posts and I've read a lot of the Reddit posts, and I'm hopefully going to summarize the questions and the answers Unity have given to those questions. I'm not going to be defending Unity. For better or worse, it is what it is, and hopefully there'll be some changes, especially for people making mobile games, but I'm just going to go over the state of where it is at the moment and some of the key questions. The plan by Unity is to charge per install, and this will only kick in if you go over a certain amount of revenue and a certain amount of downloads. An install is when you put the runtime onto a particular computer. Initially it looked like when you had multiple installs they were going to charge you multiple times. However, they've since clarified that if you have a user that installs once and then reinstalls on the same machine, that's only going to count as one install. However, if they install on one machine and then, for example, on their Steam Deck, that will count as two installs. And I assume if you use something like the family sharing that you can use, then that will count as one install per device. So think of it as one install per piece of hardware. You'll only be charged the cost per install if you go above the revenue threshold and the install threshold. Now this is set at 200,000 and it's 200,000 per game, so each game is treated individually, which is a change from the past, and each install threshold of each game being treated individually. Now if you fall into this between 200,000 and a million, you're almost certainly going to go to Unity Pro, so I don't see very many people paying the 20 cents per install. It will probably work out better for very few people, but the majority that get over this 200,000, I'm certain will just pay the extra 2,000 and go for Unity Pro. So really, the fees are going to be kicking in at $1 million in revenue and 1 million downloads, which is quite a lot. And for most developers, I don't think that's going to have that much of an effect, especially if you're making a premium game. If you're making a mobile game, on the other hand, there's going to be significant effect here, and I'll talk about that later. Now, with the cost of the installs, you have to pay each of these. So if you've got 500,000, you don't just pay 3 cents. You pay 15 cents for the first 100,000, 7.5 cents for the next 400,000, and so on. So you have to work your way up through the levels. So one question a lot of Steam users have is, what about demos? So demos won't count. So long as you have a different executable for your demo and your main game, there should be no problem there. So long as your game doesn't, for example, use the same executable that gets updated into your full game, then you're fine. So demos, absolutely fine, and they won't count on your number of installs. Unity also put a bit of a Q&A up on their forum post. It's actually not very up to date, and I wish that they would put more of the questions here. But the one that really interests me the most here is if your game is pirated, you're not going to be charged for those installs. So that was something that really worried me. Likewise, they've clarified since that if you update your app, that's not going to count as another install. It's just the one install per piece of hardware. I feel like if you need to prove your number of installs, which I think actually may be the case for some people, it's going to be pretty trivial with the store pages. So I'm not too concerned about if the number is wrong, because all you need to do is go to your store page and you'll be able to tell Unity exactly how many installs there are. At the moment, Unity aren't tracking the runtime installs by some sort of ping to a server that some people may have theorized is happening. They're using some sort of proprietary model, so I don't expect that they're actually going to be super accurate, and I do think the developers are going to have to show how many they've actually downloaded, because most of those models tend to either grossly overestimate or grossly underestimate. Of course, there may be changes to the way that they do this, but they have promised that any changes that happen with this won't cause any legal problems for you when you're uploading your game. So I suspect there actually won't be things like pings to server. I'm not entirely sure how they plan to do it. If you go over the threshold, you'll be able to buy Unity Pro, and you won't get in this weird place where you have to pay back part of it and then get Unity Pro. They've made it here that as soon as you go over, if you choose to then get Unity Pro, they'll not charge you. So that's a pretty good thing. So old games are still affected by this, so it doesn't matter what version of Unity you're on. Some people have theorized that they're not going to be able to update, and as a result, you won't be charged. That's not the case. Apparently Unity can change it. I don't necessarily know or agree whether that's right or wrong, but that's what Unity says. But the one thing about an old game is it's your revenue in the last 12 months and your download in the last 12 months. So if your game, had 500,000 downloads 3 years ago, but only had 10,000 downloads last year, it's only going to be the last year's the count on whether you go above those limits. Now this person on the forum did some basic math to show this is better than Unreal if you make more than 93 cents. While I haven't necessarily checked his maths, that's kind of where I would think it would come. So I think it's relatively in the ballpark of where it should be. However, what this clearly shows is if you're a mobile app, you're kind of screwed, because most mobile apps are making 3, 5, 7 cents per download, and they're often having millions of downloads, spending millions on advertising, actually only having a very small profit margin. And those type of apps are really going to hurt under this new system. Unity has kind of acknowledged that in the thread, that it may be an issue. I don't know what they're going to do about it, but at the moment it really looks like mobile development is the people who are going to be hit the hardest by that. I'm really sad for those developers. Another group of people that appear to be kind of left out of this is the people who are using WebGL. Initially it looked like they were going to charge per visitor for WebGL, but any mention of WebGL has now been taken out. If they do indeed charge per visitor, I find it hard to see how anybody can make a profitable WebGL app. It just seems such a tough market to monetize to start with that you wouldn't get very much money per visitor. So yeah, that's a tough one. Hopefully they'll do something about that. Unity also touched on Humble Bundles, and because they'll be for charity, apparently they won't be counted. I don't know what that means for other bundles if they're not for charity, but if you've got a Humble Bundle, apparently that's going to be okay. For something like Game Pass, apparently they plan to charge the Game Pass people, Microsoft, rather than the user. I don't quite know why the distributor pays there but not elsewhere, because otherwise that would mean, for example, Steam, they're a distributor too, so why aren't Valve paying it and why aren't Microsoft paying it there? That doesn't make that much sense to me. But for example, if you are using Game Pass or any of the other web-based ones, it seems that Unity are going to directly charge Microsoft or whoever runs that rather than the developer. The final thing I want to mention is Unity Plus is going away, and Unity Personal will be free for everybody with no limits. So that is good in the sense that everybody gets Unity Personal for free. However, if you want to get rid of the splash screen, at the moment it appears like you're going to have to go to Unity Pro, which is about 4 times the cost of Plus. I'm one of those Unity Plus users who just paid to get rid of the splash screen. So yeah, that's a kind of a rough one, and I'm obviously kind of unhappy about that. I don't really know what to say other than I really wish that they would put that into the personal edition, because I think it would really help in general for games to not have to show the Unity logo if they don't want to, because there are a lot of people who are pushing games that are not so great and they've just made 1 or 2 days which they're proud of, and they have to have the Unity logo, and they tend to be the ones that represent the engine rather than the really great games who have all paid to get rid of it. If you want to talk to me about anything in the video or just game dev in general, feel free to join my Discord. The link is in the description. And I hope your game development goes well, and I hope the Unity does change its position on some of those things, especially for our fellow developers making mobile games.